Welcome to His Stories, the place where real men's truths finally get told. If you're new here, you're in good company. This is where we strip away the mask, cut through the noise, and share the raw, unfiltered experiences that shape us as men in America. Today's story comes from a brother who learned that sometimes the people you love most will steal your entire identity as a father, then have the nerve to blame you for the emptiness they created. Let's dive in. The truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. My granddaddy used to say that to me when I was young, sitting on his front porch in Birmingham, teaching me how to whittle wood and wisdom at the same time. I carried those words with me for 75 years, thinking I understood what they meant. But sometimes, fellas, sometimes you discover that the truth doesn't just set you free from lies. Sometimes it sets you free from people who never deserved your love in the first place. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning while I was fixing breakfast for my wife, Sarah, scrambled eggs and turkey bacon the way she likes them. 21 years of silence, and my ex-wife, Jennifer, chose to break it with the words that would shatter everything I thought I knew about my life. Marcus, we need to talk. It's about Tyler. Tyler, the son I'd raised for 16 years before Jennifer took him away in the divorce. The boy I taught to throw a curveball, helped with homework, and loved like my own flesh and blood. The young man who'd been turned against me so completely that he'd refused to speak to me since he was 16 years old. What about Tyler? I asked, my hand gripping the phone so tight my knuckles went white. He's getting married next month and he wants to invite his real father to the wedding. Real father. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. What are you talking about, Jennifer? I am his real father. There was a pause, long enough for my world to start crumbling around the edges. Then she said the words that would haunt me for the rest of my life. No, Marcus, you're not. You never were. Tyler isn't your son. 21 years of believing I was a father to a boy who wasn't mine. 21 years of sending child support payments to a woman who'd been lying to me since the day that boy was born. 21 years of aching for a relationship with a son who'd been taught to see me as the man who'd abandoned him when the truth was I'd never been his father at all. If you've ever had your entire reality pulled out from under you by someone you trusted, hit subscribe and drop your city in the comments. Where you watching from? Let's see where our brotherhood stretches. Because I got a feeling this story is going to cut every man who's ever wondered if he was enough. My name is Marcus Emmanuel, and I'm 75 years old now. Born in 1949 in Birmingham, Alabama, to parents who believed that a man's word was his bond and his children were his legacy. My daddy worked at a steel mill. My mama took in washing for white folks, and they raised me to believe that family was everything, that protecting and providing for your own was the highest calling a man could have. Marcus, my daddy used to tell me as we walked to church on Sunday mornings, there ain't nothing more important in this world than taking care of your family. A man who don't take care of his children ain't no man at all. I took those words to heart, made it through high school, served 2 years in Vietnam, and came home determined to build something good with my life. Used my GI Bill to learn electrical work, and by the time I was 30, I was running my own contracting business in Atlanta, wiring houses and commercial buildings all over the metro area. The thing about growing up the way I did is that you learn the value of honest work and honest relationships. You don't lie to people, you don't cheat people, and you sure don't mess around when it comes to family. When you make a commitment, you keep it. And when you love someone, you love them all the way. That's why when I met Jennifer Caldwell at a church social in 1985, I was ready to be somebody's husband and somebody's daddy. She was 24, working as a nurse at Grady Hospital, with blonde hair and blue eyes that seemed to light up when she smiled. She came from a good family in Decatur. Folks who'd struggled some, but always kept their heads up. You're different from most men I meet, she told me that first night as we sat in my truck outside her apartment talking until the sun came up. Different? How? You listen when I talk, and you look at me like you're really seeing me, not just trying to figure out how to get me into bed. I liked that about her, how she valued respect and genuine interest. We courted for 8 months before I proposed, and she said yes without hesitation. Marcus Emmanuel, she said, tears in her eyes. You're going to make me the happiest woman in Georgia. We married in the spring of 1986. A beautiful ceremony at her family's church with about 100 people. Her parents seemed genuinely happy about our union, and I felt like I was starting the life I'd always dreamed of. Good woman, steady work, plans for children, and a future built on love and trust. Jennifer got pregnant 6 months after we married, and I was over the moon. Finally, I was going to be somebody's daddy. I'd get to teach a child how to ride a bike, throw a ball, work with their hands, treat people right. I'd get to be the kind of father my daddy had been to me. Tyler was born in March 1987, 8 pounds, 4 ounces, a perfect baby boy with his mama's blue eyes and what I thought was my stubborn chin. The moment the doctor put him in my arms, I knew I'd found my purpose in life. "Look at him, Marcus," Jennifer whispered from the hospital bed. "He's got your determination already." "He's going to be daddy's boy," I said, and I meant every word. For the first few years, I thought I was living the American dream. Good job, loving wife, beautiful son, nice house in College Park. I worked hard during the day and came home every night to help with dinner, bath time, and bedtime stories. Weekends were for family time, teaching Tyler through a ball, taking him fishing, showing him how to use tools. "Daddy, watch this," became Tyler's favorite phrase, and watching him discover the world became my greatest joy. But looking back now, I can see that Jennifer was never as happy as I thought she was. She'd get restless sometimes, talking about all the things she was missing by being tied down with the husband and baby, the career advancement she might have had, the travel she wanted to do, the independence she'd given up. "Sometimes I feel like I'm disappearing, Marcus," she told me one night when Tyler was about 3. "Like I'm just somebody's wife and somebody's mother, but I don't know who Jennifer is anymore." "You're the woman I love," I said. "You're Tyler's mama. You're building something important with us." But I should have paid more attention to that restlessness. Should have understood that Jennifer wasn't just struggling with being a wife and mother. She was struggling with being my wife and Tyler's mother specifically. Tyler was my heart from the very beginning. While other fathers might complain about sleepless nights and dirty diapers, I couldn't get enough of being that little boy's daddy. Every milestone, every first word, every wobbly step felt like a miracle I'd helped create. From the time he could walk, Tyler was my shadow. He'd follow me around the house, wanting to help with everything I was doing. When I was fixing something, he'd hand me tools. When I was working in the yard, he'd pull weeds beside me. When I was cooking breakfast on Saturday mornings, he'd stand on a chair next to me, cracking eggs and making a mess. "I want to be like you, Daddy," he told me one morning when he was about 4, watching me get dressed for work. "What do you want to be like about me?" "Strong and smart and good at fixing things." My heart nearly burst with pride. Here was this perfect little boy who looked up to me, who wanted to follow in my footsteps, who made me feel like I was succeeding at the most important job I'd ever had. When Tyler turned 5, I started taking him with me on small electrical jobs on weekends. Nothing dangerous, just service calls where I was checking outlets or installing ceiling fans. He'd carry my flashlight, hand me screwdrivers, and ask a million questions about how everything worked. "Why does the electricity make the lights turn on, Daddy? How come some wires are different colors? Can you teach me to do what you do?" I answered every question, no matter how many times he asked. Teaching Tyler about the world became one of my greatest joys. He was smart, curious, always wanting to understand how things worked and why people did what they did. But it wasn't just the technical stuff. Tyler and I had a connection that went deeper than shared interests. When he was scared during thunderstorms, he'd crawl into bed with me and Jennifer, always positioning himself on my side. When he was sad about something at school, he'd seek me out to talk about what was bothering him. "You're my best friend, Daddy," he told me one evening when he was 7, as I was tucking him into bed. "You're my best friend too, buddy. Promise you'll always be my daddy." "I promise. I'll always be your daddy, no matter what." That promise felt easy to make because I couldn't imagine a world where I wouldn't be Tyler's father. He was my son, my legacy, the best thing I'd ever contributed to this world. As Tyler got older, our relationship grew stronger. When he was in elementary school and dealing with bullies, I taught him how to stand up for himself without becoming a bully himself. When he wanted to join Little League but was nervous about trying out, I spent hours in the backyard helping him practice. You remember, Tyler, I told him before his first game, it's not about being the best player on the field. It's about doing your best and being a good teammate. He made the team and played for 3 years. I never missed a game, never missed a practice I could attend. Jennifer would come sometimes, but she seemed more interested in socializing with the other parents than watching Tyler play. "Daddy's here," Tyler would shout when he spotted me in the stands, and he'd wave like I was the most important person in the world. When Tyler was in middle school, I taught him how to change a tire, check the oil in a car, and use power tools safely. We'd spend Saturday mornings in the garage working on projects together, talking about school and friends and what he wanted to be when he grew up. "I think I want to be an electrician like you, Daddy," he said one morning when he was 12, as we were building a birdhouse for his mother. "You can be anything you want to be, son. But if you want to work with your hands and help people, that's good work, honest work. Will you teach me everything you know?" "I'll teach you everything I can." Those were some of the happiest moments of my life. Standing in my garage with my son, passing on the skills my daddy had taught me, watching Tyler's eyes light up when he understood something new. I felt like I was fulfilling my purpose as a man and a father. But even during those good times, I noticed that Jennifer seemed distant from both Tyler and me. She'd be in the house while we were in the garage, or she'd find errands to run during our weekend projects. When I'd ask her to join us, she'd say she had other things to do. "Don't you want to spend time with your family?" I asked her one Saturday. I spend plenty of time with Tyler during the week. The weekends are when I get to catch up on things I can't do while he's at school and you're at work. It made sense at the time. Jennifer worked full-time and handled most of Tyler's day-to-day care while I was building the business. I thought she deserved some time to herself on weekends. But looking back, I wonder if Jennifer was pulling away because she knew something I didn't. If watching Tyler and me together reminded her of a secret she was keeping, a lie she was living with every day. The first sign that something was wrong came when Tyler was about 8 years old. We were at a family barbecue at Jennifer's parents' house, and I was playing catch with Tyler in the backyard while the adults visited on the porch. Jennifer's mother, Barbara, was watching us with a strange expression on her face. When I threw the ball to Tyler and he caught it perfectly, she shook her head and said something to Jennifer that I couldn't hear. Later, as we were driving home, I asked Jennifer what her mother had been talking about. "Oh, you know how Mama is. She was just commenting on how different Tyler looks from you." "He different how?" "Just that he's got my coloring, my family's build. She thinks he looks more like a Caldwell than an Emmanuel." I looked in the rearview mirror at Tyler, who was dozing in his car seat. He did have Jennifer's blonde hair and blue eyes, but I'd seen plenty of mixed families where children favored one parent more than the other. I had my daddy's dark skin and my mama's broad nose, but my sister looked more like our mama's side of the family. "Genetics are funny," I said. "He's got your looks, but my personality." That's what I told her. But something about the conversation stuck with me, not because I doubted Tyler was my son, but because of the way Jennifer had brought it up, like she was testing the water, seeing how I'd react to the suggestion that Tyler might not look like me. The second incident happened when Tyler was 10. We were at the doctor's office for his annual checkup, and the nurse was taking down information for his medical records. "Any family history of diabetes?" she asked. "No," I said. "Neither side of our family has any history of that." He agreed. He deserved it. My father had some issues, but nothing serious until he was in his 70s. The nurse looked at Tyler, then at me, then at Jennifer. "And what about the biological father's family history?" I started to answer, but Jennifer jumped in quickly. "Marcus is the biological father. Is there some confusion in the records?" "Oh, I'm sorry," the nurse said, looking embarrassed. I thought, never mind, my mistake." But the damage was done. The nurse had looked at Tyler and me and assumed I wasn't his biological father. Maybe it was just about our different skin tones, but it planted a seed of doubt that I tried hard to ignore. That was weird, I said to Jennifer as we left the office. She was just confused. You know how some people are about mixed families? They see a black father and a white child and assume things. That made sense. I dealt with ignorant assumptions before, people who couldn't understand that families come in all colors. But something about Jennifer's explanation felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing for this moment. The third incident was more subtle. Tyler was 12, and he'd started showing interest in things that were very different from my own interests as a kid. While I'd been drawn to sports and working with my hands, Tyler was more interested in art and music. He wanted to take piano lessons instead of playing baseball. That's fine, I told Jennifer. Kids should explore their interests. But it's expensive, Marcus, and it's not like he's going to make a career out of playing piano. Maybe not, but it's important to nurture whatever talents he has. I just think he should focus on more practical things that will help him in the real world. It was strange for Jennifer to push back on Tyler's interest, especially since she'd always been more supportive of creative pursuits than I was. But she seemed almost resistant to the idea of Tyler developing talents that didn't align with what she thought he should be doing. Looking back, I wonder if Jennifer was worried that encouraging Tyler's natural interests might reveal something about his biological father. Maybe piano and art were things that came from his real dad's side of the family. The fourth incident happened when Tyler was 14. He'd been struggling with algebra, and I was helping him with homework one evening when Jennifer walked into the kitchen. "How's it going?" she asked. "Good," Tyler said. "Dad's really good at explaining this stuff." "Mm-hmm," Jennifer said, looking at the homework. "You know, Tyler, you might want to ask your teacher for extra help. Sometimes it's better to learn from someone who's actually trained to teach these subjects." I looked up at her, surprised. "I think we're doing fine. Tyler's understanding it when I explain it. I just think he might benefit from a different teaching style." It was a small thing, but it felt like Jennifer was trying to create distance between Tyler and me. Like she didn't want us to have those moments of connection that came from working through problems together. The fifth incident was the most telling. Tyler was 15, and he'd started asking questions about family history for a school project on genealogy. "Dad, do you have any pictures of your grandparents?" he asked one evening. "Sure, buddy. Let me get the photo albums." I spent an hour showing Tyler pictures of my family, telling him stories about his great-grandparents, explaining how they'd met and where they'd lived. Tyler was fascinated, asking detailed questions about their lives and what they'd been like. "What about Mom's side?" he asked. Jennifer, who'd been quiet during my family story, suddenly became very involved. She pulled out her own photo albums and spent just as much time going through her family history. But when Tyler asked about how Jennifer and I had met, she cut the conversation short. "That's enough family history for one night," she said. "Tyler needs to get started on his homework." "But I want to hear about how you and Dad got together," Tyler protested. "Another time. It's getting late." I thought it was odd that Jennifer didn't want to share our love story with Tyler. We'd always been open about how we'd met, how we'd courted, how excited we'd been when we found out we were having a baby. But lately, Jennifer seemed uncomfortable talking about the early days of our relationship. The final warning sign came just before everything fell apart. Tyler was 16, and he'd been accepted to a summer program for students interested in engineering. It was expensive, but I was proud that he was showing interest in a field that combined creativity with practical skill. "I'd like to support this," I told Jennifer. "It's a great opportunity for him." "I don't think it's a good idea," she said. "Why not?" "Tyler needs to focus on getting a job, not pursuing expensive hobbies." "This isn't a hobby, Jennifer. This is his future. His future is whatever he makes it. And right now, he needs to learn responsibility." We had our first real fight about Tyler's education. I couldn't understand why Jennifer wasn't supporting our son's interest, why she seemed determined to limit his opportunities. It felt like she was trying to keep Tyler from developing into the person he was meant to be. But I still didn't understand what was really going on. I thought Jennifer was just being overly practical, maybe worried about money or our marriage. I never imagined that she was trying to prevent Tyler from pursuing interests that might connect him to his real father. The explosion that destroyed my world started small, the way most disasters do. Tyler was 16 and had been increasingly distant from both Jennifer and me. Typical teenage behavior, I thought. He was finding his independence, pushing boundaries, figuring out who he was apart from his parents. But then Jennifer filed for divorce in the spring of 2003. "I'm not happy, Marcus," she told me one evening after Tyler had gone to bed. "I haven't been happy for a long time." "What do you mean? What's wrong?" "Whatever it is, we can work on it." "No, we can't. I don't want to be married anymore." Just like that. 16 years of marriage, 16 years of building a life together, and she was done. "What about Tyler? What about our family?" "Tyler will be fine. Kids adjust." But Tyler wasn't fine. The divorce hit him hard, and he seemed to blame me for the family falling apart. No matter how much I tried to explain that this was between his mother and me, that I still loved him and wanted to be in his life, he grew more and more resentful. "If you really loved us, you wouldn't have let this happen," he said to me one evening when I picked him up for our court-mandated visitation. "Tyler, sometimes adults can't stay married even when they want to. That doesn't mean I love you any less. But you're making mom sad and now everything's different." Jennifer had poisoned him against me, painted me as the villain in the divorce. She told him I was selfish, that I cared more about work than family, that I was the reason she was unhappy. None of it was true, but Tyler believed her. By the time he was 17, he was barely speaking to me during our visits. By the time he was 18, he'd stopped coming to see me altogether. "I don't want a relationship with you anymore," he told me in a phone call that lasted less than 5 minutes. "I'm an adult now and I can choose who I want in my life." "Tyler, please, let's talk about this. Whatever you think I've done wrong, let me explain." "There's nothing to explain, Marcus. You weren't the father I needed, and now I don't need a father at all." "Marcus, not daddy, Marcus, like I was a stranger." The last time I saw Tyler, he was 19 years old and working at an auto parts store in Decatur. I had driven by, hoping to catch a glimpse of him, maybe try to start a conversation. When he saw me, he walked into the back room and stayed there until I left. I continued paying child support until Tyler turned 21, even though he was living independently and wanted nothing to do with me. The court had ordered it, and I believed in meeting my obligations, even when it felt like I was paying to support a son who'd been turned against me. For the next few years, I heard about Tyler through mutual acquaintances. He'd finished community college, found a good job, was doing well for himself. I was proud of him, even though he wanted nothing to do with me. I hoped that someday, when he was older and had some perspective, he might reach out and want to rebuild our relationship. That hope sustained me through some very dark years. I'd remarried in 2010 to a wonderful woman named Sarah, who understood that I was carrying the pain of losing my son. She never tried to replace Tyler in my heart, but she helped me build a life that had meaning beyond that loss. "Maybe when he has children of his own, he'll understand what it means to be a father," Sarah said. "Maybe he'll realize that you did the best you could." I held on to that hope for 21 years. 21 years of wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed as a father, why the boy I'd loved more than my own life couldn't find it in his heart to forgive whatever mistakes I'd made. Then came that phone call from Jennifer, and suddenly everything made sense in the most devastating way possible. "Tyler isn't your son." Those 4 words explained everything. Why Tyler had never really looked like me, why Jennifer had been so uncomfortable with our family stories, why she tried to limit Tyler's interests and opportunities, why she'd been so eager to end our marriage and turn Tyler against me. Tyler wasn't my son. I'd spent 16 years raising another man's child, believing I was building a legacy, believing I was being the kind of father my own daddy had taught me to be. And when Jennifer was ready to move on with her life, she'd taken Tyler away from me without a second thought. "Who is his real father?" I asked, my voice barely working. A man I was seeing before we got married, before I met you." "Before you met me?" "Jennifer, we dated for 8 months before we got married. Tyler was born 9 months after the wedding." I was pregnant when we met, Marcus. I was scared and alone, and you seemed like a good man who would take care of us. Pregnant when we met. Everything I'd believed about our love story, our courtship, our marriage was a lie. Jennifer had never loved me. She'd used me to provide for her and her son, and when she was done with me, she discarded me like yesterday's newspaper. Does Tyler know? He's known for a few years. I told him when he turned 18. So when he cut me out of his life, he already knew I wasn't his real father. Yeah, that was the cruelest cut of all. Tyler hadn't rejected me because I'd been a bad father. He rejected me because I'd never been his father at all. And he'd known it while I was still desperately trying to maintain our relationship. Why are you telling me this now? Because Tyler's getting married and his real father wants to walk him down the aisle. I thought you should know in case you heard about it from someone else. In case I heard about it from someone else. Like Jennifer was doing me a favor by breaking my heart personally instead of letting me find out through the grapevine. 21 years of child support payments. 21 years of loving a boy who wasn't mine. 21 years of believing I was Tyler's father, when the truth was I'd been nothing more than a convenient source of financial support for a woman who'd never loved me and a child who'd never been mine. The first few days after Jennifer's phone call were the darkest of my life. I moved through my routine like a ghost, going to work, coming home, trying to pretend that my entire understanding of my life hadn't been shattered in a 5-minute conversation. Sarah knew something was wrong immediately. Marcus, what happened? You look like someone died. In a way, someone had died. The Marcus Emmanuel who'd been Tyler's father was gone, replaced by a man who'd been living a lie for over 3 decades. I told Sarah everything about the phone call, about Tyler not being my son, about 21 years of believing I was a father when I was really just a paycheck. Oh, honey, Sarah said, wrapping her arms around me. I'm so sorry. I can't even imagine how you must be feeling. I feel like an idiot. How did I not know? How did I raise a child for 16 years and never suspect that he wasn't mine? Because you're a good man who trusted the woman you loved. Because you were being the father that child needed regardless of biology. But Sarah's comfort, as well-intentioned as it was, couldn't heal the wound that had been opened. I'd spent 21 years defining myself as Tyler's father, and now I had to figure out who Marcus Emmanuel was if he wasn't that. I made an appointment with a lawyer to understand my legal options. Could I sue Jennifer for fraud? Could I get back the child support payments I'd made? Could I demand a paternity test to confirm what she told me? Mr. Emmanuel, the lawyer explained, this is a complex situation. In Georgia, if you signed the birth certificate and acted as the child's father, you're considered the legal father regardless of biology. You probably can't recover the child support payments, and pursuing legal action would be expensive and emotionally devastating. So she can lie to me for 21 years and there's no consequence? Unfortunately, the law is more concerned with the welfare of the child than with punishing deceptive parents. Since Tyler is now an adult and you're no longer paying support, there's limited legal recourse. So that was it. Jennifer had stolen 21 years of my life, convinced me to love a child who wasn't mine, then taken that child away when it was convenient for her and there was nothing I could do about it legally. But I needed to know for sure. I hired a private investigator to find out more about Tyler's real father and to see if there was any way to get DNA evidence that would confirm Jennifer's story. The investigator's report was devastating. Tyler's real father was a man named Brad Thompson, a musician who'd been touring with a band when Jennifer got pregnant. She'd had a brief relationship with him, but when she found out she was pregnant, he disappeared. Jennifer had been 3 months pregnant when she met me. The investigator had also managed to get samples for a DNA test, hair from a brush Tyler had left at a barber shop compared to a sample I provided. The results were conclusive. Tyler was not my biological son. Seeing it in black and white with the scientific certainty of DNA analysis made it real in a way that Jennifer's phone call hadn't. I'd spent 21 years loving a child who shared none of my DNA, believing I was building a legacy when I was really just fulfilling someone else's responsibility. I started seeing a therapist to help me process the grief and anger. Dr. Robert Shen specialized in helping men deal with betrayal and identity issues. Mr. Emmanuel he said during one of our early sessions, you're grieving multiple losses. You're grieving the loss of your identity as Tyler's father. You're grieving the loss of the relationship you thought you had with him. And you're grieving the loss of trust in your own judgment. How do you recover from something like this? You start by acknowledging that you were the victim of an elaborate deception. This isn't about your failure to recognize the truth. This is about someone else's deliberate choice to lie to you. But the hardest part wasn't the anger at Jennifer. The hardest part was wondering if Tyler had ever really loved me, or if I'd just been a convenient father figure until he found out the truth about his real dad. Had our fishing trips meant anything to him? Had our conversations about life and values mattered to him? Had I been a real father to him, even if I wasn't his biological father? I wanted to reach out to Tyler to try to explain my side of the story, to tell him that I loved him as completely as any father could love a son, but I knew he wouldn't want to hear from me. In his mind, I was probably just the man who'd been deceived into taking care of him, and now that the truth was out, there was no reason for us to maintain any connection. 6 months after Jennifer's phone call, I received Tyler's wedding invitation in the mail. I stared at it for a long time, this elegant card announcing the marriage of Tyler Thompson to Ashley Miller. Thompson, he'd taken his real father's name. The invitation was addressed to Marcus Emanuel, not Mr. and Mrs. Emanuel. Sarah wasn't included. It felt like a final insult, a reminder that I was just a relic from Tyler's past, not a real part of his family. I didn't attend the wedding. I couldn't bring myself to sit in a church and watch the boy I'd raised for 16 years be given away by a man who'd never changed a diaper, never stayed up all night with a sick child, never taught him how to throw a curveball or change a tire. But I did something that night that I needed to do for my own healing. I wrote Tyler a letter. The letter I wrote to Tyler was the hardest thing I'd ever put on paper. I must have started it a dozen times, trying to find the right words to express 21 years of love, disappointment, and loss. Dear Tyler, I began, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say some things that I should have said a long time ago. I told him about the phone call from his mother, about learning that I wasn't his biological father, about the 21 years I'd spent believing I was raising my son. I told him about the pride I'd felt watching him grow up, the joy I'd gotten from teaching him things, the love that had never wavered even when he'd cut me out of his life. I don't know what your mother told you about me or what you've been led to believe about why our relationship ended, but I want you to know that I love you from the moment you were born until the moment I found out you weren't mine, and I'll love you until the day I die, regardless of what any DNA test says. I told him about the child support payments I'd continued making even after he'd rejected me because I'd believed it was my responsibility as his father. I told him about the years of wondering what I'd done wrong, how I'd failed him, why he couldn't forgive me for whatever mistakes I'd made. Now, I understand that it was never about my failures as a father. You rejected me because you knew something I didn't know. You knew I wasn't your real dad, and you were choosing your real family over the man who'd been deceived into thinking he was part of it. I told him I didn't blame him for that choice. He'd been a child caught in the middle of his mother's deception, and children have the right to know their real parents and to choose their own relationships. But I need you to know that every moment I spent being your father was real for me. Every bedtime story, every little league game, every conversation we had about life and values and dreams, all of that was real love from a man who believed he was raising his son. I ended the letter by wishing him well in his marriage and his life, and by telling him that if he ever wanted to talk about our years together, I'd be available. Not as his father, because I understood now that I'd never been that, but as someone who loved him and wanted the best for him. I mailed the letter to his apartment, not sure if he'd read it or throw it away. I never got a response, which was what I'd expected. Tyler had moved on with his life, and there was no room in it for the man who'd been his father under false pretenses. But writing that letter helped me begin to process my own feelings about what had happened. I wasn't just angry at Jennifer anymore. I was angry at a system that allowed women to deceive men about paternity, then offered no recourse when the truth came out. I started researching paternity fraud and discovered that I wasn't alone. Thousands of men had been deceived into believing they were fathers to children who weren't theirs. Some found out through DNA tests, others through deathbed confessions, others through accidents like I had. But what struck me most was how little support there was for men in my situation. The legal system was designed to protect children and mothers, which I understood, but there was no acknowledgement of the trauma experienced by men who'd been victims of paternity fraud. No resources for dealing with the grief and identity crisis that came with learning you've been living a lie. I decided to use my experience to help other men who might be going through the same thing. I started attending support groups for divorced fathers, and I was shocked by how many of them had similar stories. Men who'd been cut off from children they'd raised, men who suspected they weren't the biological fathers but were afraid to find out, men who'd been financially and emotionally devastated by women who used them as convenient father figures. "Marcus," said James, a 50-year-old mechanic whose ex-wife had admitted to an affair after 15 years of marriage, "how do you get over the feeling that you're a fool? How do you trust your own judgment again?" "You start by understanding that being a good man doesn't make you a fool," I told him. "We were victimized by people who took advantage of our love and our integrity. That's not our failure." I also started volunteering with an organization that advocated for men's rights in family court. Not because I was bitter about women, but because I'd seen how the system could be manipulated by dishonest people to exploit good men. "Mr. Emmanuel," said David Rodriguez, the organization's director, "your story highlights a real problem in our legal system. Men can be forced to pay child support for children who aren't theirs, and even when they discover the truth, they have no recourse. What can be done about it? Education, advocacy, and legal reform. We need laws that protect men from paternity fraud while still ensuring their children are supported. We need mandatory DNA testing at birth. We need consequences for women who knowingly deceive men about paternity." Working with the organization gave me a sense of purpose that I'd been missing since Tyler's rejection. I couldn't get back the 21 years that had been stolen from me, but I could help prevent other men from going through the same thing. I started speaking at men's groups about my experience, sharing my story with other fathers who were struggling with similar situations. It was painful to relive the betrayal over and over again, but it was also healing to see how my story helped other men feel less alone. "Before hearing you speak," one man told me after a presentation, "I thought I was the only man stupid enough to raise another man's child for 10 years. Now I understand that I was a victim, not a fool." 3 years after Jennifer's phone call, I received an unexpected contact, not from Tyler, but from Brad Thompson, Tyler's biological father. "Mr. Emmanuel," he said when he called, "I know this is strange, but I wanted to thank you for taking care of my son all those years." I didn't know how to respond. This man had unknowingly been the reason for my 21 years of deception, and now he was thanking me for cleaning up the mess he'd left behind. "I didn't know Jennifer was pregnant when I left town," he continued. "I was young and stupid, and I thought I could just disappear and pretend nothing had happened. When she contacted me a few years ago and told me about Tyler, I realized what I'd missed." "And what you'd cost me," I said. "Yes, and I'm sorry for that. You gave Tyler something I couldn't give him, and I'll always be grateful for that." It was a strange conversation, but it gave me some closure. Brad Thompson wasn't a villain who'd deliberately stolen my son. He was just another man who'd been caught up in Jennifer's web of deception, though from a different angle. "Tyler's a good man," Brad said before he hung up. "You did a good job raising him." Those words meant more to me than I expected. Even though Tyler wasn't my biological son, I had played a role in shaping the man he'd become. That couldn't be taken away from me, even if our relationship could. But the most important step in my healing process was learning to rebuild my identity around something other than being Tyler's father. For 21 years, that had been the most important thing about me. Now, I had to figure out who Marcus Emmanuel was when he wasn't anybody's daddy. Sarah helped with that process. She encouraged me to pursue interests and goals that had nothing to do with being a father or trying to recover what I'd lost. "You're a good man, Marcus," she told me one evening as we sat on our porch watching the sunset. You're kind, you're generous, you're hardworking, you're loyal. Those qualities don't disappear just because Tyler wasn't your biological son. I started focusing on my marriage to Sarah, on being the husband she deserved. I threw myself into my work, building the best electrical contracting business I could. I volunteered more with the men's advocacy organization, helping other fathers who were dealing with family court issues. Slowly, I built a life that had meaning beyond Tyler. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was a good life, built on truth and genuine relationships rather than deception and manipulation. 5 years after Jennifer's phone call, I ran into Tyler at a Home Depot in Marietta. He was buying supplies for what looked like a home improvement project, and he'd grown into a man I barely recognized. He was taller, broader, more confident. He looked happy. When he saw me, he didn't run away or ignore me. He walked over and said, "Hello, Marcus." "Hello, Tyler. You look good." "Thank you. I heard you got remarried." "I did. Her name's Sarah. She's a good woman." "I'm glad you found happiness." We stood there for a moment, two men who'd once been father and son, now strangers with a complicated history. "Tyler," I said, "I want you to know that I don't regret the years I spent being your father. They were the best years of my life." "I know," he said quietly, "and I want you to know that you were a good father to me, the best I could have asked for." It was the closure I'd been needing without knowing it. Tyler acknowledged that our relationship had been real and meaningful, even if it had been built on a lie. He recognized the love and effort I'd put into raising him, even if he couldn't maintain a relationship with me now that he knew the truth. "I hope you have a good life, Tyler." "You too, Marcus." He walked away, and I knew it would probably be the last time we'd speak, but for the first time in 5 years, I felt at peace with how things had ended between us. Life lessons and growth. I'm 75 now, and I've spent the past 10 years learning lessons about love, truth, and identity that I wish I'd understood when I was younger. Not just about marriage and fatherhood, but about human nature, about forgiveness, about the difference between being a victim and being broken. The first lesson is about the difference between love and biology. For 16 years, I loved Tyler with everything I had, and that love was real, even though our biological connection wasn't. Love isn't about DNA. Love is about choice, commitment, and sacrifice. I chose to love Tyler every day for 16 years, and that choice created a real relationship, even if it was based on false information. The fact that Tyler wasn't my biological son doesn't erase the meaning of our relationship. I was still the man who taught him to ride a bike, who helped him with homework, who was there for him when he was scared or sad. Biology didn't create those moments. Love did. The second lesson is about the nature of deception. Jennifer didn't just lie to me about Tyler's paternity. She constructed an entire false reality and convinced me to live in it. That kind of systematic deception is a form of psychological abuse that can be just as damaging as physical violence. For years, I blamed myself for not seeing the truth. But Dr. Chen helped me understand that sophisticated liars are skilled at creating believable stories and making their victims doubt their own perceptions. "You weren't stupid, Marcus," he told me. "You were trusting. There's a difference." The third lesson is about the importance of documentation and verification, especially when it comes to children. If I had to do it over again, I would have insisted on a paternity test when Tyler was born. Not because I didn't trust Jennifer, but because it's just good practice. Men have rights and responsibilities when it comes to children, but we can only exercise those rights and meet those responsibilities if we know the truth about our biological connections to those children. The fourth lesson is about the power of forgiveness, but not the kind of forgiveness people usually talk about. I didn't forgive Jennifer because she deserved it or because it was the Christian thing to do. I forgave her because carrying the anger was destroying my ability to build a new life. Forgiveness wasn't about Jennifer. It was about me choosing to stop letting her betrayal control my emotional state. Stop giving her power over my peace of mind. Stop allowing her actions to define my future. The fifth lesson is about the difference between being a father and being a dad. Being a father is about biology. Being a dad is about relationship, commitment, and love. I was Tyler's dad for 16 years, even if I wasn't his father. That role had value and meaning regardless of DNA. But I also learned that being a dad isn't enough if the other person doesn't want the relationship. Tyler had the right to choose his biological father over me, and I had to respect that choice, even though it broke my heart. The sixth lesson is about building identity beyond family roles. For most of my adult life, I defined myself primarily as Tyler's dad. When that was taken away, I had to figure out who Marcus Emmanuel was when he wasn't anybody's father. That process was painful, but ultimately liberating. I discovered that I was a skilled craftsman, a loyal friend, a faithful husband, a committed advocate for other men. These identities belonged to me regardless of whether Tyler acknowledged our relationship. The seventh lesson is about the importance of male support networks. Men are often reluctant to talk about emotional pain, especially pain related to family relationships, but I found tremendous healing in connecting with other men who'd been through similar experiences. The thing about betrayal, Robert, a 60-year-old teacher whose wife had lied about their daughter's paternity, said during one of our support group meetings, is that it makes you feel like you're the only person stupid enough to fall for it. But look around this room. We're all good men who trusted the wrong people. The eighth lesson is about the need for legal reform. The current system allows women to commit paternity fraud with minimal consequences while forcing men to pay for children who aren't theirs. This isn't about being anti-woman. It's about creating a system that protects everyone's rights, including men's rights. I became an advocate for mandatory paternity testing at birth, not to destroy families, but to ensure that family relationships are built on truth from the beginning. The ninth lesson is about the difference between justice and revenge. I couldn't get back the 21 years that Jennifer had stolen from me, and pursuing legal action against her would have been expensive and futile. But I could work to prevent other men from going through the same thing. Justice isn't always about punishing the people who wronged you. Sometimes it's about using your experience to protect other people from similar harm. The 10th lesson is about the power of choice in healing. I couldn't choose whether Tyler wanted a relationship with me. I couldn't choose whether Jennifer faced consequences for her deception, but I could choose how I responded to their choices. I chose to build a new life with Sarah. I chose to help other men in similar situations. I chose to find meaning and purpose beyond the role of Tyler's father. Those choices gave me back my power and my peace. If you hear nothing else from me, remember this: being deceived doesn't make you a fool. Trusting people you love doesn't make you weak. And losing a relationship built on lies doesn't mean you've lost anything real. You get to decide whether other people's betrayal makes you bitter or makes you wise. You get to decide whether you'll spend the rest of your life being a victim or being a survivor. You get to decide what kind of legacy you'll leave behind. Jennifer and Tyler took 21 years of my life, but they couldn't take my character, my integrity, or my ability to love again. Those things belong to me, and no one could steal them unless I let them. Reflectivity. These days, I spend my mornings on the back porch of the house Sarah and I bought together, drinking coffee and reading the paper while she tends to her flower garden. It's a peaceful life built on honesty and mutual respect, everything my marriage to Jennifer wasn't. Sometimes I think about Tyler, wonder how his marriage is going, whether he's happy, whether he ever thinks about the man who raised him for 16 years. But those thoughts don't hurt anymore. They're just memories, like thinking about a book I read years ago that had both beautiful and sad parts. Last month, I received a birth announcement in the mail. Tyler and his wife had had a baby, a little boy named Marcus Thompson. Marcus, after me. I stared at that announcement for a long time, trying to understand what it meant. Was Tyler honoring me by naming his son after me? Was he acknowledging the role I'd played in his life? Or was it just a coincidence, a name he'd chosen for other reasons? I showed the announcement to Sarah. "What do you think it means?" I asked. "I think it means Tyler remembers the good parts," she said. "Even if he can't have a relationship with you now, he wants his son to carry something of the man who raised him." Maybe Sarah was right. Maybe in his own way, Tyler was telling me that our years together had mattered, that the love and lessons I'd given him were worth passing on to his own son. I wrote a brief note congratulating Tyler and his wife on their new addition, and I sent a small gift, a wooden toy truck I'd made in my workshop. I didn't ask to meet baby Marcus, didn't push for grandparent rights, didn't try to force my way back into Tyler's life. But I did start a savings account in little Marcus's name. Every month, I put money aside for his future, for college or a house or whatever dreams he might have someday. Not because Tyler had asked me to, not because I owed anyone anything, but because that's what love looks like. Real love doesn't demand recognition. Real love doesn't keep score. Real love gives because giving is what love does, not because the recipient has earned it or deserves it. If little Marcus ever wants to know about the man he was named after, I'll be here. If he doesn't, that's okay too. But either way, he'll have resources available to him because someone loved his father before he was born, someone who understood that family isn't just about biology. 6 months after the birth announcement, I received another unexpected contact. Not from Tyler, but from Jennifer. "Marcus," she said when she called, "I wanted to thank you for the gift you sent to Tyler's baby." It was nothing. No, it wasn't nothing. It was kind. More kind than I deserved after what I put you through. I waited for her to continue. "I also wanted to tell you that I'm sorry. For the lies, for the deception, for taking Tyler away from you. You didn't deserve that." It was the first time she'd ever apologized, and it came 25 years too late to change anything. But it was something. "But why now, Jennifer? Why are you apologizing now?" "Because I'm watching Tyler with his son, and I can see what a good father he is. And I realized that he learned how to be that father from you. You gave him something I couldn't give him, and I took that away from both of you. Tyler was lucky to have you as his father, Marcus. I hope someday he realizes that." After she hung up, I sat on my porch thinking about forgiveness and redemption and the strange ways life sometimes comes full circle. Jennifer's apology didn't change the past, but it acknowledged the truth about what had happened between us. I had been a good father to Tyler. I had given him love, guidance, and support during the most important years of his development. That couldn't be taken away from me, even if our relationship could. The following week, I received a card in the mail. It was from Tyler, a simple thank you note for the toy truck. "Marcus," he wrote, "thank you for the gift from Marcus. He loves the truck. I wanted you to know that I named him after you because you taught me what it means to be a father. Even though we can't have a relationship now, I'll never forget the lessons you taught me about love, integrity, and taking care of family. I hope my son grows up to be the kind of man you are." That card sits framed on my nightstand now. It reminds me every morning that love isn't wasted even when relationships end. The investment I made in Tyler's life had value, even if I couldn't see the returns for 25 years. If this story hit home, share your own experience in the comments. Drop a line about a time when you had to choose between bitterness and healing. Don't forget to subscribe and tell a brother who needs to hear that his worth isn't determined by other people's deceptions. This is his stories where men rise above to. And remember, fellows, being a good man doesn't make you a fool. Loving completely doesn't make you weak. And being deceived doesn't make you less worthy of real love. Your character is determined by how you respond when life tests you. Your value is measured by the integrity you maintain when others abandon theirs. You are defined by the love you give, not by whether that love is returned or appreciated. At 75, I wake up every morning grateful for the truth, even when it hurt. Grateful for the love I gave Tyler, even though he wasn't mine. Grateful for the lessons I learned about deception and healing. Grateful for Sarah, who loves me for who I am now, not for who I used to think I was. The family you build on truth is stronger than the family you inherit through biology. The love you choose to give is more meaningful than the love you feel obligated to show. The peace you create for yourself is more valuable than the approval you seek from others. Tyler may never understand what he meant to me during those 16 years, but I understand what those years meant to me, and that's enough. I was a father when it mattered most, and no DNA test can change that. The rest of my story is still being written, one honest day at a time. If this story touched your heart or opened your eyes to something you never thought about before, I need you to do 3 things right now. First, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell for his stories. This is where real men's truths get told without filters, without sugarcoating, and without apology. We've got dozens more stories from brothers who've walked through fire and came out stronger on the other side. Second, smash that like button if Marcus's story resonated with you. Your likes tell YouTube that these stories matter, that men's experiences deserve to be heard, and that there's a brotherhood out here hungry for authentic truth. Third, share this video with a brother who needs to hear it. Maybe it's a friend going through a rough divorce, a father questioning his worth, or just a good man who needs to be reminded that his integrity has value even when others don't appreciate it. Copy that link and send it to someone who could use Marcus's wisdom today. Drop a comment below and let us know where you're watching from. Are you in Atlanta like Marcus? Birmingham, Chicago, Los Angeles? Let's see how far this brotherhood stretches. And if you've got a story that needs telling, reach out to us. Your truth might be exactly what another man needs to hear. This is his stories where men rise above together. We'll see you in the next one.